This Equipment World video is brought to you by Chevron Delo 600 ADF Ultra Low Ash Diesel Engine Oil. It's time to kick some ash. Hi everyone, welcome back to Equipment World. You're watching The Dirt. I'm your host Brian, and today we're going to talk about a subject that I get asked about all the time. Should I lease or should I purchase a new piece of equipment? And I'm not qualified to answer that one as much as I would like to be. So today we have Teague on. She is a lease consultant for Cat Financial Services, and she is going to answer this question for us with detail, with expert knowledge. So I'm going to turn us over to the interview before I say something that I'm not qualified to say. But before we get into that, I want to take a second to tell you about the sponsor of this video, Chevron Lubricants. Protecting your diesel engine and its exhaust aftertreatment system has traditionally been seen as an either-or proposition when it comes to choosing the engine oil that's going to protect your system. And that's exactly why Chevron spent more than a decade of R&D work developing a no-compromise formulation. Now, I don't have to tell you why a clogged DPF is bad news, but here's the real kick in the pants. 90% of that ash clogging up your DPF and then upping your fuel and maintenance costs, it comes from your engine oil. You might be thinking, why don't they make an engine oil with less ash in it then? You'll be happy to learn that Chevron agrees with you. They've developed a new ultra-low ash diesel engine oil that is specifically designed to combat DPF ash clogging. Delo 600 ADF with OmniMax technology cuts sulfate ash by 60%, radically reducing the rate of DPF clogging and extending the DPF service life by 2.5 times. Before you had to choose between protecting your engine or your aftertreatment system. Now you don't. Delo 600 ADF with OmniMax technology. It's time to kick some ash. Well, Allie, thanks for being on The Dirt today. I really appreciate you taking your time to answer some questions for us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm actually really excited to conduct this interview because I get asked not only here, but on my personal channel, I get asked all the time, if I'm starting a company, I'm needing to upgrade equipment, should I lease or purchase? And I've been on the equipment dealership side, but I've never actually been on the finance side of things. So I am actually, it's nice to have an expert opinion here. So my first question is, what are some of the advantages of leasing a piece of equipment over just outright purchasing a piece of equipment?
Yeah, so leasing gives customers a couple things. It gives them flexibility and cash flow. One, flexibility because you have the option at end of lease with what you want to do with that unit. So customers can purchase the unit at end of lease. They can finance the purchase option through Cat Financial. They can extend the lease if they still need the equipment, but might only need it for another year or two. They can extend the lease for a couple years. They can go short-term, month to month, or they can return it. So it just gives them that flexibility at end of lease. In addition, if they purchase the equipment and finance it through us or do a lease extension through Cat Financial, they can add aftermarket services such as our Cat Value Agreement or our Extended Protection Program. And that just gives them peace of mind that the machine will be protected and well maintained. Another advantage, like I mentioned, was cash flow. So lease payments tend to be less than loan payments. So it just gives customers a little bit more cash flow that's not going towards their monthly note. Another thing is the way that leases are accounted for on customers' balance sheet tend to give them that cash flow advantage as well. So I would say two advantages of leasing is that end of lease flexibility and then that the cash flow advantage.
I gotcha. That makes total sense. So now I think for the most part it's fairly obvious, but could you walk us through some of the advantages of going the outright purchase route over leasing?
Yeah, so like you said, the obvious part of outright purchase is just customers are building equity in a unit. If they want to purchase that, or if they want to sell that equipment or trade it in, they have the equity so they can do so. Another advantage of owning equipment is they get the depreciation on the machine and they can take the tax benefit from that. So really those would be the two advantages I would say of just like outright purchases.
So now that we've covered kind of the advantages of both, could you cover some disadvantages of each? So, why shouldn't I lease and why shouldn't I purchase?
I wouldn't really call them disadvantages. I think, so Cat Financial offers different financing solutions based on customers' business needs. And so I would say that sometimes, depending on the customer's business needs, certain financial products could have disadvantages, such as, for example, if a customer if their focus or if their need is to build equity and to own the machine, then I would say a disadvantage of a lease is they're making rental payments. On the other end, if a customer if their only focus or their main need is that lower monthly payment, then maybe a disadvantage of the loan would be the higher monthly payment. So I don't necessarily know if it's disadvantages. It's more just based on what product works for the customer based on their needs.
So you've kind of answered my next question in a way, but just to expound, is one truly better than the other, or is it really situational dependent?
Yeah, I don't think that one is better than the other. It's more situational dependent based on the customer's business need, based when they acquire the machine.
And you do this as a profession. You are a finance expert within Cat Financial, correct?
Yes, sir.
So when you're dealing with customers typically on the finance side, do you tend to see a big mix of lease and purchase, or is it generally they kind of have a business model that is one or the other?
Yeah, I think a blended philosophy of rentals, lease, purchase, I think having like a fleet of mixtures is usually a good balance for customers.
If someone is wanting to transition over to doing more leases, what would kind of be the process to starting down that road? Not only just from, and I'm not talking about physically coming in and getting a piece of equipment and signing the right paperwork. It's more of kind of getting your business ready to start leasing. If you've been a traditional purchase guy, what would be the way to go about that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I would advise that they work with a business advisor. They look at their fleet. They look at their equipment utilization. They look at their cash flows. They look at like what direction they're wanting to take their business, and kind of develop that overall goal, and then go to their local sales rep, work with their Cat financial territory manager to review quotes and review options, leasing options specifically, that best suit their goals based on what they reviewed with their business advisors.
So I am going to go a little off of our questions that we talked about just for a second.
Yeah.
Because one just occurred to me is, does it make more sense to maybe go the lease route on bigger pieces of equipment, for instance, a loader as opposed to a skid steer, or is it kind of equally viable on small equipment as large equipment?
I think it's equally viable on small equipment as large equipment. I really think it depends on equipment utilization and needs. So do they just need that machine for one job that they can do a 2-year, 3-year lease on, or maybe 12-month lease on, or do they need that equipment for long term? And is it a high utilization machine or a low utilization machine? So I don't think it's more dependent on model. It's more dependent on utilization and need for the machine.
One of my last questions, because I thought of another one. I'm on a roll today.
We're going way
Does
off.
it ever? Yeah, we're good. So does it ever really make sense to purchase a machine on the backside of a lease? Because that is a little bit, it's similar to the automotive world. It is a little bit of a rigged number on the back end. So does it really make sense to purchase a machine on the backside of a lease?
That is a great question, and absolutely. So as a lease consultant, that's part of my job. I work with customers. I contact customers at end of lease and review their options with them. And the first option that I always present is, hey, you have the option to purchase this equipment. You have the option to either purchase it outright or finance it through us. And I every day work with customers who decide to purchase the equipment for a couple of reasons. One, the equipment's already on their job site or on their yard. And so if it's been a good piece of equipment, the hours are still at a reasonable amount, and they still have a use for that machine, why not keep it and purchase it at that favorable purchase option price? And then also customers that purchase, they can then finance in those aftermarket services as well. The Cat value agreement, like I mentioned earlier, in our extended warranty. So if they are worried about the age of the machine, that kind of gives them that peace of mind that the machine is protected and that they'll continue to maintain it. But yes, to answer your question, there is advantages of purchasing it at the end of lease.
Okay. Well, that makes total sense. My final question, I think, unless I think of another one. One of the things that a lot of contractors aren't necessarily aware of, especially if they've never gone the lease route, is on the back end of the lease, you do have wear items that you are responsible for, such as track wear, tire wear, things like that. Are there some things that I don't need to get super detailed that you need to pull out a list or anything, but are there some items that kind of come to mind to you that contractors should be aware of going in on the front end of a lease of, hey, keep this in mind because it might, come and get you on the back end?
Yeah, I think the one I see most is just over hours. So when you sign up for a lease, you have an allotted amount of hours you can use that lease annually. And customers do get hit with big charges if they go over those hours. So I think that's the one that I see most often. Other than that, it's just like your normal wear and tear, maintaining the unit. And that's why it's great now when I'm doing lease extensions with customers, trying to couple it with that CAT value agreement where they're keeping the machine maintained. Even though it is a lease, it just kind of keeps the value of that machine and keeps it maintained before they turn it in.
One more if we're good with it.
I'm good with it.
Okay. So for someone who is a new business starting up and they really aren't sure which route is best for them, you kind of touched on it earlier, but would you say you guys in your position, is that something that you can kind of coach someone through, or is it something where you'd really recommend them getting in touch with a financial advisor to figure out what's going to work for their business model best?
So I think it's kind of two parts. I think we have our local Caterpillar financial territory managers, and absolutely that's their job, is to work with customers about the different financing solutions we have, leases, loans, the different types of leases we have, and kind of work with them based on their business model to see which product type would fit their business best for that equipment. So absolutely, I think a good step is to reach out to our local CAT financial territory managers and just have a conversation with them about where they're at and what they're looking for. They could advise you to talk to a financial advisor and go from there. But I think a good step would be, after working with your sales rep, is to loop in that territory manager to talk specific financing.
Okay. And so just to get the ball rolling, if I'm, never done this before, I've just decided to, go start my little company up, who do I contact first? What's my first step to get the ball rolling there?
Yeah, so your first step is reach out to your local dealer. If you have worked with the sales rep before, reach out to them. They can get you in touch with the territory manager, the CAT financial territory manager, to speak financing. If you don't know who your sales rep is, I believe if you Google the local dealerships, they'll have their customer service numbers that you can reach out to. But that's usually a good way to get in touch with the CAT financial rep. We work very closely with the dealers and the sales reps.
Perfect. Well, that's it. You've exhausted my questions, even the ones that I didn't prep you for. I do appreciate it.
Of course. This was fun. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for being on, and hopefully we'll have you back on sometime here in the near future.
Yeah, I'd appreciate it. Thanks, Brian.
Again, a big thank you to Allie for taking the time out of her day to explain some of this to us and really break it down into easy to understand terms on whether you should pursue leasing or purchasing your next piece of equipment. Obviously, you're more than welcome, if you have additional questions, to contact us down below in the comments or just speak directly with one of your CAT Finance reps, and they would be more than happy to walk you through the process. And with that being said, thanks again for watching, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode of The Dirt.